Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. It's been such a journey learning about Princess Alexandra through the book Queen Alexandra by Georgiana Batscombe, and it really shows the human side to these royal figures, notably Princess Alexandra, the Prince of Wales, and Queen Victoria. So let's see what's going on today. Queen Victoria lost her favorite Highland servant, John Brown, on the 29th of March, 1883. This put Queen Victoria back into a great sadness. The princess was too kind-hearted to think evil of the dead, or to withhold sympathy from the living because their grief might seem foolish or misplaced. On the 21st of April, the Queen wrote from Osborne to her daughter, the Crown Princess, in a state of depression, adding, however, "Dear Alex has been here for 2 nights, and nothing could exceed her tender sympathy and complete understanding of all I feel and suffer." Ponsonby stated that he met the Queen and the Princess of Wales driving together in silence. Her Royal Highness made a peculiar smile at us, as if to say that it was not lively. Ponsonby stated that the Princess's presence acted as a real tonic to the Queen. The Princess's visit stirred up Her Majesty and did her a deal of good, as she is busy on dozens of things now. The Princess was always grateful to Queen Victoria for her unfailing love and understanding that she gave to the problem child, Prince Eddie. Lord Napier wrote that Prince Eddie had charming manners. He does the right things as a young gentleman in a quiet way. This characteristic endeared him to his grandmother. Ponsonby visited Balmoral to be invested with the Garter. He was not known to flatter or overpraise royalty, thought quite well of him. He is pleasing, talks well, and will be popular when he gets more at ease. Ponsonby touched the real difficulty when he noticed that he cannot apply himself for a length of time, and he also mentioned a handicap which, although unremarked by most people, may well have accounted for some of the Prince Eddie's slowness. "I perceive he is a little deaf." After Prince Eddie's visit to Balmoral, his mother wrote the Queen a letter in which she touched very discreetly on her own chief difficulty in the upbringing of sons, the discrepancy between the standard which she would wish them to adopt and the way of life pursued by their father. "I am delighted to see Eddie looking so well and having enjoyed his visit to you in Scotland so much. I am so glad you seem to understand his disposition, which really is an excellent one, and he is a very good boy at heart, though perhaps he is a little slow and dawdly, which I always attribute to his having grown so fast. I am delighted you gave him such good advice, and the very points you mentioned are those which I always try to impress upon him. And I am particularly glad you did not allude to any of the other subjects you intended speaking about, such as races, clubs, etc., as he really has no inclination that way, and I might only have put them into his head beside placing his father in a rather awkward position." The 2 brothers were to be parted for the first time, Prince Eddie going to Cambridge and Prince George being appointed to HMS Canada of the West Indies and North American Squadron. As always, the parting from her beloved Georgie was peculiarly painful to the princess. On the 12th of June, Thursday night, at 12:30, she wrote her son an ingenuous but essentially wise letter of goodbye, which clearly illustrates the emotional relationship, intense but curiously simple, existing between mother and son. "My own darling little Georgie, I have only just left you going to bed after having given you my last kiss and having heard you say your prayers. I need hardly say what I feel and what we both feel at this sad hour of parting. It will be harder for you this time to have to go quite by yourself, without Eddie, Mr. Dalton, or Fuller. But remember, darling, that when all others are far away, God is always there, and he will never forsake you, but bring you safe back to all of us who love you so. I need hardly say, my darling little Georgie, how much I shall always miss you. Now we have been so much together, and you were such a dear little boy, such a dear little, but not at all spoiled, and so nice and affectionate to old Mother dear. Remain just as you are, but strive to get on in all that is good, and keep out of temptation as much as you can. Don't let anyone lead you astray. Remember to take the sacrament about every quarter, which will give you fresh strength to do what is right, and also never forget either your morning or your evening prayer. Well, we must all try and console ourselves by thinking how quickly the year will pass and what delight it will be to meet once more. And now, darling Georgie, I must say good night and goodbye, as I am so sleepy and my eyes will hardly keep awake, and it's nearly 2. So goodbye, and God bless you and keep you safe and sound till we meet again, and watch over you wherever you are, and watch over you wherever you are. Goodbye, goodbye, Georgie dear. Ever most loving, affectionate old mother dear. At the end of the summer came the usual family holiday in Denmark, where the princess was delighted to meet her sister and her brother-in-law with their children. For the Tsar and Tsarina, this was a welcome change after the oppressive atmosphere in Russia, where their lives were overshadowed by threats of assassination. For this reason, when they parted, it was a tearful time, even by the standards of the Danish royal family, who were never given to repressing their feelings on such occasions. The princess described to Prince George that awful moment of tearing ourselves away from one another, not knowing where and how our next meeting may be. Poor little Minnie, I could see her now, standing on top of the steps in utter despair, her eyes streaming over with tears, and trying to hold me as long as she could. Poor Sasha, too, felt the parting very much and cried dreadfully. On her return to England, the princess wrote to her son, describing days out hunting and house parties at Sandringham, where the guest had included old Christian. She had never got used to him as her brother-in-law. She said he did nothing but eat and shoot other people's pheasants. Another party, consisting chiefly of distinguished foreigners, French and German, whom I had never seen before, and who had never set eyes on each other, turned out to be that rare thing at Sandringham, a failure somehow or other, and they did not pull together. She sounded cheerful on New Year's Eve. She could write certainly 1883 was one of the happiest years of my life. Goodbye, dear little George. The letter continued. Keep well, always to your duty, fear God and love me. Ever your old loving mother dear. On December the 1st, 1884, the Princess of Wales celebrated her 40th birthday. Although she appeared young and beautiful as ever, she had in fact reached middle age. Life at Sandringham and dear old bright, comfortable Marlborough House seemed to be settling into a routine. It would never be a rut because the princess was lively and unpredictable. Queen Victoria continued to refuse her son any share in the work of the monarchy, so that, inevitably, his activities were social rather than political. In 1884, the prince and princess found themselves accused by the Tories of taking part in a reform demonstration. Prompted not so much by reforming zeal as by idle curiosity, they decided to watch a great procession which was to march through London in support of the new reform bill. The organizers of the demonstration had been warned that the prince and princess would be watching from Lord Carrington's house opposite the House Guards. As the procession drew level with Carrington House, the bands cheered their tune from the Marseillaise to God Save the Queen, while roars of applause greeted the appearance of the prince and princess on the balcony. After standing for an hour and a half acknowledging the rapturous greetings of the crowd, the princess turned faint and slipped back into the house. The prince without his wife was not what the people wanted. The yells and howls of disappointment were so loud that she agreed to return. She propped up on a pile of sofa cushions and continued to wave and smile until the last of the procession had passed by. It was a triumph for the royal family, an earnest welcome which the queen herself would receive when she at last decided to emerge from her seclusion and show herself again to her people. Things weren't that great when the Prince and Princess of Wales went to Ireland the next year. The princess was used to the nation's love and adulation, but for a few uncomfortable hours, she found the nation's hatred. With her husband and eldest son, she landed in Kingston on April the 18th, 1885. At first things went well. The prince's equerry, Arthur Ellis, told Queen Victoria that the reception had been a good one, with only a few boos and hisses to be heard, and that Prince Victor's unaffected good manners are much remarked upon. In Dublin, the most memorable moment came when the princess was made a Doctor of Music at Trinity College. Anything prettier than the Princess of Wales in her gown, white with red sleeves, has never been seen in Dublin or in any other city of the world, wrote the devoted Dington Probyn. The princess herself wrote that the ceremony had made her feel such a fool, but she also remarked gleefully that her husband had been made a mere doctor of law, not such a grand one as me. She wrote, I don't think any Irishman here would do us any harm. She wrote in this same letter to Prince George They are all very nice and friendly. She was soon to discover her mistake. At Mallow, where a near riot broke out a half hour before the royal train was due to arrive, the military had to be called in to help the police clear the station. Worse, however, was to come. In spite of a reassuring letter which Viceroy Lord Spencer had written to Queen Victoria, everyone was uneasy as to the kind of reception the Prince and Princess might receive in Cork. On a fine bright morning they drove into the city to be greeted with a storm of hoots and hisses and boos. Insults of every kind were screamed at them and an occasional onion thrown into their carriage. The few polite loyalist cheers were drowned out by counter cheers for the nationalist leader Parnell. "No prince but Parnell! No prince but Parnell!" was the cry. In spite of the temper of the people, the Prince of Wales refused to cut short the arranged program. On he drove, his wife at his side, both of them calm and smiling, through a mob brandishing black flags and black handkerchiefs and yelling abuse. Never were there so many dirty, ill-looking countenances gathered together, Arthur Ellis wrote afterwards. It was like a bad dream. Although the quay where the royal party was to embark was occupied only by well-wishers, the opposite quay was crammed with some 2,000 to 3,000 people, shaking their fists and brandishing sticks and calling down curses as the boat with the prince and princess on board drew away to the calm of the sea. Such an expression of mass hatred had seldom occurred before, even to Ireland. It says volumes for the determinedly ostrich-like attitude adopted by the loyalist element, both English and Irish, that next day the headline in the Daily Telegraph ran, "Royal visit to Cork, enthusiastic reception in the city." What a way to rewrite events. I guess you could say they were enthusiastic in their hatred, that is. So I'm going to end the video here. We saw that even though Princess Alexandra might not have liked some of the ways Queen Victoria ruled, she loved her mother-in-law and was there for her when her friend and servant John Brown passed away. Queen Victoria appreciated her support. Queen Victoria also thought highly of Prince Eddie, which meant a lot to the Princess of Wales. Then the most scary thing happened when the Prince and Princess of Wales went to Ireland. They thought they were loved by all, but they encountered a large mob yelling and booing and hissing and holding sticks. It must have been frightening, but the Prince and Princess continued on their journey, smiling till they got on their boat and sailed away. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you haven't subscribed, if you could do so, it would help the channel to grow, as well as giving it a thumbs up. It's all a great help. And if you haven't clicked on the notification bell, if you could do that, it lets you know when a video is posted. More importantly, I want to wish everyone a good day, and tune in again soon for another episode of Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. Thank you. Bye.